the best neighborhoods in Barcelona, Paella Day in Valencia, and Flamenco in Seville. This week, it's the best of Spain.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. This is where we enjoy the world's great food at destinationeatdrink.com, on the Destination Eat Drink YouTube channel, and here on the Destination Eat Drink podcast. And this week, we're enjoying the best of Spain. But first, if you like food and travel, be sure to rate and review Destination Eat Drink on your podcast app. Only takes a second and helps the show reach more people. And if you can, please consider supporting the podcast with a one-time or ongoing contribution in any amount at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. Everybody wants to visit Spain. It's one of the most popular destinations in the world, so I thought we'd take a trip to 4 of the most popular parts of Spain. Barcelona for the city's great food markets, Seville for flamenco, San Sebastian for Basque culture, and Valencia for paella. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Paula Morenza is a foodie tour guide in Barcelona for culinary backstreets. She tells me about the best neighborhoods to visit in Spain's most popular city.
Well, Barcelona metropolitan area is about more or less 4 million people. Barcelona city itself is really smaller. It's around 1.5 million. The main neighborhoods are obviously the center, like the old city, L'Eixample, maybe are the best known neighborhoods of the city. And then immediately we have beautiful areas like Gracia, for instance, or Sants, or Poblenou, Poble-sec, that they are neighborhoods that originally were villages, so they have a lot of personality themselves. For example, Gracia is one of the neighborhoods that I think that maybe is more interesting from a culinary point of view, because a high concentration of bars and restaurants and bodegas from all different times, from the time when Gracia it was a village, and very modern projects, super interesting projects that they were started for like young chefs very recently. So they have all this combination of the very old neighborhood life, families living there for several generations, with a very strong feeling of belonging to this neighborhood, and at the same time a lot of like new arrival population and young people also living in this area. A lot of young families. It is a fantastic neighborhood for young families because there are a lot of squares and a lot of terraces. So that means like open spaces for have a meal outside, no? What is part of the charm of Gracia neighborhood. Another neighborhood that is also very interesting from a culinary point of view, that is not L'Eixample or the old city, the very center of Barcelona, that this is always like super sparkling, is maybe Poble-sec. Poble-sec, it is in one of the sides of Montjuic mountain, Montjuic Hill, and it's again a dense like neighborhood with a lot of bars and restaurants, and with several streets, long streets that they are mostly dedicated to bars, and you can find terrace after terrace after terrace after terrace, with a great offer of, in this case of Poble-sec, a lot of pinchos, beer, vermouth, or offer for the vermouth time, no? A little bit more far away we have Sants. Sants is a neighborhood with a very interesting workers' tradition, cooperatives, factories, especially during the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. And nowadays it's a neighborhood with a very strong personality that I love. And they also have this old market, centenarian market, these beautiful squares, and a lot of neighborhood life with their bars and old school bodegas. that also make this neighborhood a very interesting one to visit from a culinary point of view. I don't know, in Barcelona, the thing is that Barcelona is one of those European cities made from villages. No, it was the old center of the city, and then villages that with the time, especially from the end of the 19th century, all these villages became part of the city. They became neighborhoods. But as villages, they already had their own center of life, normally around a market. So they already had built like a fabric, no, or these like restaurants from the whole life and bodegas from the whole life, and together with the new projects and the new bars and the new restaurants, normally all these neighborhoods, they always have a very interesting area to visit and to enjoy eating and drinking.
I love that these neighborhoods retain their characteristic charm. But I wanted to go back to, you mentioned the Sants neighborhood, Paula. Tell me about the restored Mercat de Sants, what that's like, and what are some of the things that we can enjoy when we visit?
The Mercat of Sants, el Mercat Nou, is one of the centenarian markets of Barcelona. We have in Barcelona like 39 food markets, and 14 of these markets are historical ones, and 11 are, or 12 are centenarian markets with more than 100 years. That means that from time to time, this market, they should be refurbished, restored. And that happened with the markets in Gracia, with the Mercat of San Antoni in San Antoni neighborhood that took 9 years to restore it. And also with the Mercat de Sants. So in this moment, we have the original beautiful building, a modernist building that the construction finished in 1913. But inside is completely refurbished, air conditioning, everything super clean and fantastic. We have all the traditional stalls that we are going to find in all the food markets of Barcelona. The butchers, the charcuteries, the vegetables. Something fantastic of Barcelona markets is that normally they have an offer a little bit more gourmet than what you can find in a regular supermarket. And you have very interesting, more proximity products, local products. Some stalls, not all of them, but some stalls, they even have very specific local providers, or a few of them, they even have their own production in their own stalls, no? Their own vegetables in this case. All of these normally combined with a few cafeterias and restaurants. Normally restaurants is 1, 2. The thing is that the markets in Barcelona, they try to remain markets. It was a lot of debate about what to do with the markets, how to transform or not transform them into food halls, like it was happening in other European markets, like, for example, the Time Out Market in Lisbon. No?
Yes.
And in Barcelona, for example, one of the last markets in being restored, it was a San Antoni market. It's an amazing market with a Greek cross. Took a lot of time to restore it because there are some very old artifacts, Roman artifacts, and also part of the medieval wall under the market. And that was complicating a lot the restoration, and gave time also to debate and discuss what to do with the market, with the neighbors, with the association of commerciants, with all the parts that were involved in the market life. And all of them, they were claiming the market for the neighborhood life. They didn't want it to have a market only to expose as a touristic site. They didn't want to have a market like el Mercado de San Miguel in Madrid, for instance, that is completely transformed into something else to visit. They wanted to keep the market like a neighborhood market to go and buy and make your shopping and maybe welcome everybody, of course, but keeping the original identity. That was very important for everybody, for the sellers, especially for the neighbors.
Eunice Reyes is the creator and host of the award-winning YouTube channel Rated V. She shares some of her favorite spots in the still under-the-radar city of Valencia. You know, everyone goes to Barcelona, right? But Valencia is well within reach. Even if you're not driving, you can get on the high-speed train and you can be in Valencia pretty quickly. It's worth a few days to go down there and visit. So let's start this conversation about Spain in Valencia. It's south of Barcelona. What else do I need to know about Valencia before I go there?
So Valencia is something to know. There's that one of the languages there is Valenciano, which was funny because when I went, I thought, oh, cute. It's like this historic, what is it? Not language. What's the word I'm looking for? Dialect. Yeah, I was like, it's like a dialect that they have from way back when, and I was like, oh, that's nice that they keep some of the signs are still in Valenciano, and I was like, I don't think anybody speaks anymore. No, everybody my age still speaks Valenciano. Like they speak Spanish, like Castellano. They'll still speak Spanish, but they also speak it fluently within themselves, amongst themselves. Like a lot of the teachers would speak Valenciano to each other. So it's like, if you ever hear something that's like, obviously coming from the US or Latin American countries, the Spanish is very different from the Spanish in Spain. So that already is kind of like, might throw you off. But then like, sometimes they'll throw in some Valenciano and then you're like, what are they saying? But like, it won't happen too often, but it might just be something that you might notice as to why maybe it's a little difficult to understand, but you won't really have a problem. But something else to know is, so one of my favorite things about Valencia is they have this park. It's called Turia that runs throughout the whole city. And this park used to be a river, which there was an unfortunate accident one time where it flooded. And, there's a lot of people that died from it. But after that, they said, okay, this is not good to have this river. So they closed it up. They closed it up and everything and made it into this park. So now this park goes from the old city center a little way further than the old city center all the way down to the beach. And it is just beautiful. It's almost like, think of Central Park. It's almost like the Central Park of Valencia. And you can ride your bikes there. There's gyms in that park outdoors. There's soccer fields. There's like the metro, has a stop there at one point. There's fountains. The Palace of Music is also there as well. Again, the City of Arts and Sciences, Calatrava, if you're familiar with architecture, he's done like this beautiful dome, so it's kind of like this hybrid of old and new. It has like, kind of like all of Spain, right? Because Spain has a lot of influence from like the Moors, so it has like Arabic influence, but also a lot of Roman, influence as well. So you'll see a lot of castles in Spain, like all of Europe, but there's a lot in Spain. And just like, it's just an awesome city because you can experience like an old city, old town, but then you also can go to the beach if you want, right? And it's a lower cost of living as well than Madrid or Barcelona. I wouldn't say it's like drastically lower, but it is lower. Like, I don't know about now, but like when I was there, like an average coffee is like €1.80 or something, you know what I mean? So it's not like, so that's why when people think, can you actually live off, €1,000 a month? It's like, yeah, like, over here in the US, a coffee costs you like $4.
It's so funny that you say that, Eunice, because here in Portugal, a typical uma bica is less than €1. So when I hear you saying those costs, I'm like, oh, that's kind of expensive.
I know, oh my gosh, like, or it could be less than that. I'm like throwing out numbers. I just remember it's definitely, you should not be paying €2 for a coffee. If you are, you're at a fancy place, right? Like, yeah. Absolutely not. Like a coffee is always like €1 something, €1.30 or €1, you know what I mean? Depending where you are.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the food in Valencia, because one of my favorite videos you did was you making paella in Valencia. Talk to me a little bit about that experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's one thing I love about the culture in Valencia. So Valencia is very family oriented. You could tell, Spain in general, the Spanish are very family oriented. And I feel like I don't know, maybe it's because I lived there more, but I felt like I got more of a vibe from Valencia in that sense because, again, like most people know, paella originated in Valencia, right? So that's where it comes from. You can usually find paella everywhere else in Spain, but Valencia is where you need to eat paella because that's where it came from, right? And so one tradition that I absolutely love there is that every Sunday, all my Spanish friends would always go to their parents' house or grandparents' house because it was paella day. Sunday is paella day. So you go over to your mom or your grandparents' house and they start early in the morning, and you kind of just start with drinks or whatever, and you just make paella. because it's a process, right? The paella can, you're prepping all the ingredients. It can take maybe an hour or so or two to make the paella. But while you're there, you're just like sitting together as a family and you make this paella and you just sit all day just hanging out at home eating paella, right? Like that's the thing. It's like family day eating paella. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, this is something I would love to do with my family. Like, obviously I was there alone. My family was all here in the US, but I was like, I love that every Sunday, like you knew like your Spanish friends were hanging out at some family's house because they were eating paella. So it's a big deal. So it's like, so yes, you can eat it at restaurants, but like the experience you want to have obviously is like that home cooked family experience. And so that video that you saw of making paella, I went to a business called Horta Viva. They do tours, but they also do this paella making experience to where if you want, you want to make your own and have that experience of what it feels like to have paella with a family, like you can go and, go make it with the owner, right? And that was a really fun experience. So that was my first time ever making paella side by side with an expert, of course. And then, but something to know is that you can definitely find vegan paella. It's veggie paella because obviously the typical paella will have like seafood or like other things, but a lot of places will have a veggie paella. So if you ever go, Casa Patagona is my favorite place to go for veggie paella in Valencia. It's right on the beach front, so you can sit, depending where you sit in the restaurant, you can see the beach or you sit right next to it. So it's beautiful.
Pilar Rubio is a food tour guide from Seville. She tells me about the art form known as flamenco and the best places to see a performance in her city. You mentioned flamenco. Is there a place that you would recommend folks go to see flamenco in the Triana neighborhood when they come visit Seville?
Absolutely. I have two favorite places for flamenco in the city, and one of them is in Triana. It's in Pureza Street, very close to the parish in Triana, and it's called Teatro Flamenco Triana. But there is some fun facts that Americans are going to love about this. This is the foundation of Christina Herring, and Christina Herring, she is an American lady. She came to Sevilla, to Andalusia when she was young. She fell in love with flamenco and she started this foundation that today is the closest thing to an official school of flamenco. And people from all the world comes to this place to learn flamenco or to become a professional flamenco artist. And they have a flamenco show every day, starting at 7:30. Every evening, and another one at 9. And the level of the artist is so good. It's so high. There's no bad day in this place. And I'm saying this because flamenco every day is different. To understand flamenco really, you should go to a live flamenco show. I go to 3 or 4 flamenco shows every week, and every time is different.
I recall our first visit ever to Andalusia, and we were in Puerto de Santa Maria, and we just saw a sign on a wall that said there was going to be a local flamenco performance in this little town. And so we decided to go, and it wasn't a flashy professional one. It seemed like it was just local folks who were, coming up doing their thing, and it seemed like the audience was mostly family members and friends of the performers. And even though this was nearly 20 years ago now, I still recall this so vividly because this is where I got turned on to a drink that they called just for short tinto, which is basically soda and red wine because it was hot. And the performers were just so grateful to be up on stage. It was obvious that they were having the times of their lives. And so I recommend to everyone, see a flamenco performance, but ask a local where you should go. And luckily you're here to tell us the best place to go, Pilar. So thank you for that.
This is a theater. If flamenco also happened spontaneously in the locals. The locals we normally go to La Peña Flamenca. La Peña Flamenca is like a club, like a little club. But I think that it's better that you have your first contact with flamenco for example, in the Teatro Flamenco Triana, because in this little club, they only have performances normally in the weekends, and they are very focused in the singing. Most important thing in flamenco is the singing. So you're not going to see a lot of dancing. But if you have time enough to go to both, that would be perfect, because you're going to see two different kinds of flamenco. And also happens spontaneously in the family celebrations in certain bars, but we cannot tell you anything about this because you never know when it's going to happen. Maybe it doesn't happen.
Anna Wiedelchoska is a tour guide in San Sebastian. She talks about the Basque people of San Sebastian and their culture. How is the Basque culture distinct from Spain and maybe the French culture that's so close by?
When we talk about Basque country, we talk about cultural region. So we cover 7 provinces that include 3 provinces on the French side and 4 provinces on the Spanish side. When you zoom out from the city, you will see we've got mountains on one hand side, and the other hand side is a Biscay Bay that is a part of the Cantabrian Sea, and then part of the Atlantic Ocean. So these people have been living here kind of in kind of a separation from the rest of Europe. And they were here way before everybody else arrived. So they were here before the Spanish. So Basque people have been living here since the caveman time. And they also use another language that is called Euskera. And this is what connects them between the French and the Spanish villages. So Basque people, they're very different to Spaniards, I'd say. If we have to compare people from the south, from Andalusia, which is much more sunny, and they're much more open than here in the north, I would say they're kind of reserved. They are not jumping straight into your arms when they see you. You really still need to win them over. I always laugh when I say that the people from the south are like peaches. So the first layer is really soft, but then you get to a little stone. That is really hard to break. And here in the north, we call them coconuts. The first layer is really hard, so you really need to work on it. But once you're in, you're swimming in a sweet juice. So this is how I would describe the Basque people.
That's such an interesting description, Anya. Do people actually say that the people from the south are like peaches and from the north are like coconuts, or is this something you just made up?
No, I came up with this, but we always say that the first layer here is really, really hard. Okay, so it's not a saying we have here, but we very often use it.
And you mentioned the Basque language, which is really interesting because, when we were in Madrid, there's a Basque population there, and it seems so different than Spanish or French. Are there a lot of people who still speak the Basque as their primary language in Basque country?
Yes, Basque language, this first thing to understand, is one of the oldest spoken languages in the world, and we have no ideas where is it coming from, because we believe the cavemen used to speak it. That's really long time ago in Paleolithic times. So it's really hard to find, any evidence of that. But it has nothing to do with Latin. So Spanish has nothing to do with Basque. Right now, we've got around 35% of the whole population speaking it. This is just because we had the dictatorship of Franco here in Spain that didn't want Basques or Catalans to use their own languages and dialects. Right. So during this time of 35 years, more or less, a lot of people stopped using it. It was completely forbidden to use the language publicly. That's why it's only 35%. But what is happening right now? At schools, you have to learn Basque. And you've got 3 different models. And in the first one, kids learn Spanish. They do everything in Spanish, and they have a couple of hours of Basque a week. Then we have a model that is in between. So you do half and half. And the last model that 75% of young people and kids are choosing right now means everything in Basque. And you just have a couple of hours of Spanish. And you learn Spanish on the streets anyway, and from the TV. But at school, Basque is coming back. It's still official language here, so you have to use it. You have to speak it if you want to work in the public sector.
And it sounds like from what you're saying, Anya, that the Basque language, and therefore the Basque culture is growing because more students are embracing it. So as years go by and these young people grow up, we'll see more of the Basque culture starting to reassert itself. Let's talk about Devour Tours, because you work for Devour Tours. You're a guide in San Sebastian. And Devour, one of my favorite tour companies, advocates responsible travel. What exactly does responsible travel mean?
Well, obviously, it's to find a good balance between the local community, the visitors, and the local companies. What we've been talking lately a lot, especially in Barcelona, is like the gentrification because of tourism. So this is something we are working here, where San Sebastian becoming very popular in the last years, not to happen. What we don't want the neighborhoods to disappear, for example. Now we have an old part of San Sebastian that is very famous and everybody would like to visit it. But that means that if we substitute the local businesses only with restaurants and only with and the houses with hotels, this is going to lose completely its own authenticity. So this is something we would like to embrace here in San Sebastian, like try to take people not only to the places that are the most visited, but also take them out and show them what is the whole Basque country, what is the whole idea of living here, not only in San Sebastian, but in the local villages, for example. So this is for me to be responsible, to think how to, not to stick only to one place, to one bar, take people to the other places, show them the real life in Basque country.
Okay, that's Spain. If you want to get in touch with any of the guests on the show, I've got links in the description. And I got to say, since we moved to Portugal 2.5 years ago, we've been spending quite a bit of time in Spain. It's so close by, right? In fact, I've done a ton of videos about Spain, and I've got a bunch more coming up on my YouTube channel. I just posted the latest one about Jerez, which is a quick train ride from Seville. You can see that at destinationeatdrink.com by clicking on the video tab or by going to the YouTube channel at Destination Eat Drink 946. I also just posted a story about one of the great viewpoints in Portugal. It's at the Sanctuary of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in Viana do Castelo, Portugal. You can read that story and see some great pictures at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. Next week, we are in Lisbon for traditional tascas, a secret sauce, and a seafood stew from Brazil. So don't miss that. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson, and I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.